Hello, welcome to the Paranormal Peep Show with myself, Neil Geddes-Ward, and Andy Chaplin. Andy, how are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Mostly bored in lockdown. I've no idea what the rules are anymore, so they keep changing them every 5 minutes. God knows. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm all right. Yeah, I know. The rules keep changing. It's almost like you're playing a pack of cards. One minute you got a full deck, and next minute you haven't, and you're thinking, "What the hell am I doing?" So, like, as from a certain date, it's back down to 6 people, where you could meet so many bubbles and God knows what else a few weeks ago.
So it was 2 households, but as many people as you like, and now it's six people, but from only from as many households as possible. I don't know.
But apparently, I don't know if this is true, but I saw that if you're out hunting, fox hunting,
hunting,
you can have loads of people.
Yeah, you can have 50 people if you hunt.
Yeah.
Bizarre.
That's a bit bizarre indeed. Yeah. Anyway, so this is a slightly different sort of show for people that are watching on YouTube. We have a guest, and he's sitting right in front of us, but it's also he might be using this show on his platform as well. So we've got Paul from Unite Planet. He's one half of Unite Planet because his partner Johnny was going to take part in tonight's interview, but he's kind of predisposed, I guess, because it's his birthday coming up. Well, yeah, he's going to have his birthday tomorrow, and his sister's come to join him, so we'll wish him a happy birthday from us. So it's Paul from Unite Planet is going to interview us, and we're going to interview him. So welcome, Paul from Unite Planet. How are you, Paul?
I'm very well, Neil. Hi, Andy. You okay?
Hello. How you doing?
We're good. We're good. So, obviously, Andy and I have been running the Paranormal Peep Show for about 4 years now on the Paranormal UK Radio Network. And it's been going very well. We've been obviously getting better at doing it. I hope we've been getting better at doing it and getting interesting guests along, things like that. So this is the first time we've kind of done a cross-platform chat with people that do their own kind of show. So can you tell our listeners on the Paranormal Peep Show front, what is Unite Planet and where did it all begin?
Oh gosh, that's a big story, isn't it? Yeah, so basically how it started for me was like 2016. I was really thinking to myself, I want to do something really positive and really, just make something special in my mind anyway. And it was to make a good YouTube channel. And I thought, well, what name should I give it? And a name that came to my head was To Unite the Planet. So I was looking like Unite the Planet, and that was taken already. Planet to Unite, taken already. So eventually I went for Unite Planet, and and it stuck from there. And I met up with my old friend Johnny. I was known him from I was 18 at the time, and I've known him since then into my adulthood, and met up with him again, explained what Unite Planet is all about. He loved the idea, and he came on board, and the rest is history, really.
Great. So, I mean,
what was sort of your main topics of discussion, or your favourite topics within your?
Wow, and that's another thing. We go for many things, so like UFOs to paranormal, to conspiracy theories. I hate that using that word, conspiracy theories. More like critical thinking and things like that, really. Also, I'm just thinking of all sorts of things. We've done poetry. People have written about poems, comedy. We do documentaries. We do road trips. We do so many things, really.
Wow, it keeps you really busy by the sound, because you've got quite a few videos. I've been watching quite a few of them over the last month or so. Very interesting people that you get on, and you obviously have regular people come back, which is handy.
Exactly.
What is your favourite subject that you personally like?
Near-death experience. That's my favourite topic, because
you had one, didn't you? Yeah. Did you want to tell us about that? How did all that happen?
Well, I was born with spina bifida, so I've been having problems with my walking since day one. I was born with a hole in my back when I was a baby. I was basically the size of a 2p piece in my back, so it was really bad damage to my back, and so from then I've had operations, from all my childhood. So I've had about up to that point of 14 years of age, I've probably had about 12 operations. And so when I was about to have the operation, I was given a muscle relaxant for this one particular operation that I was going to have. And the muscle relaxant was really lethal. Well, it was lethal to me. My heart stopped. And so as I'm getting to the point of like feeling really painful in my body, my hands were like twice, we can't see them very well. My hands were twice as big and red. And I said to my surgeon, look at this, Mr. Newton. And he looked around at my hands and face and all this kind of thing. And he said, oh, beep. And that was it. I basically then passed out, black. And then the next thing you know, I was above myself. And I saw myself without any stress or anything like that. I just basically said, oh, that's me. That's my doctor. That's my nurses. It wasn't me panicking at all. I just thought, okay, that's just me. And I wasn't scared. I wasn't panicking. And then I was given 3 beings coming over towards me at that time of me realizing I'm dead. 3 beings, light beings, came over to me and said, Paul, they didn't say my name even. They said, come away from there. You don't want to see that. And so I came away from seeing my body. And then I was whisked into another realm, and I had a life review. In the life review, I saw past, present, future, all in one go, like a big cinema screen. It's not even a screen. It looked like a well of some kind with water and TV, and you can't describe it with words. I can't describe it with words. Anyway, I saw past, present, and future all in one hit. A bit of education going off as well. What was life really about? And then I was given the options: do you want to go back to your body, or do you want to go to the next? But there's basically nudging me and saying, you're 14 years of age, you've still got lots to learn. You'll go back anyway. If you don't learn now, you'll learn in your next anyway. So you got a choice to make. And I said, well, I want to go back to see my family again, and I'm only young, and I went back to my body.
Wow, that's
What
amazing.
did the beings look like? Were they human, or were they alien, or?
They were very like light beings. I'll tell you what I was to do. I'll show you a picture. Lloyd Canning. I don't know if you've ever heard of an artist called Lloyd Canning. Yeah. Well, he painted a picture, and it struck with me straight away. It looked like, can't see it very well.
It's so light they vanish.
It's so light.
Yeah, we're having difficulty with the background issue.
Yeah, I can't.
Tell you what,
I'll tell you what I'll do.
If you supply me that, we can drop that in or edit it in.
I'll do that. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So basically, a light being is without a face. It's really glowing. You can't really. You can see like almost like eyes in it, but no nose. Very slim. Basically, a light being. I had no body at all myself. I think I was actually a light being as well.
Mm-hmm.
I was without body, so without. It sounds horrible, but I was like at the time thinking like it's great because I was no pains in my body anymore. I didn't have any disability anymore. I was thinking like, oh, this is wonderful. It's quite it's quite a relief almost. But then I thought, no, I still want to go back to see my family, and that was reasons why I came back really.
Wow. And so
you said that you had some conversations to do with life and kind of the meanings of life and stuff. I'm quite interested in that.
Okay. So the main reasons why we are here, I gather from that, is really that we're here to learn. That's why we keep coming back. We do reincarnate. That's what I've been told by seeing previous deaths. I saw a lot of deaths. I know it sounds horrible to say. I didn't see previous lives so much of myself. I think it's myself. I saw one which was quite horrific, to be honest with you. It was me or a person falling on a bed of spikes in like a Romany Greek situation going off, basically falling into a bed of spikes and dying on spikes, wooden spikes. Ow. Sounds horrific, I know, but that's what I saw. That was the most horrific one I saw, and remembered it straight away after that. And then so I just saw like death after death after death. And then I saw like things into my future as well. I saw Russia, I'm thinking like when I came out of a 14-year-old lad, I was thinking like that was a very surreal dream, and why am I seeing Russia and all this kind of thing? But anyway, time went by, and I married a Russian lady.
Oh, really? Oh, that's interesting.
Hmm.
Now, it's interesting you
Yeah.
talked about the whole in your spine size of a 2 pence piece, but then you mentioned a previous lifetime where you fell on spikes, and
Exactly.
they talk about injuries carry through, don't they, into other lifetimes? So you obviously consider that.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I considered that as well. Yeah, definitely.
yeah.
Yeah, and I definitely think that we choose the body that we go into. I know it sounds horrible to say. People are thinking like, why would he choose to have spina bifida? But I feel like it's a learning curve, and I'm here to learn. So basically, the main reason that we are here is to learn, is to love, and is to connect with people. That's the main reasons why I think that we're here for.
Mm, mm. So,
I think it's the connecting with people that I find the difficult part. Because this world
Yeah,
is crazy, it's getting crazier, and people are just losing their minds, especially in lockdown.
I agree with that. It's making people very, very sensitive, isn't it?
It is.
it's psychologically affecting us, isn't it? It's everyone's being
Yeah.
driven crazy by it in one form or another. I mean, at least we can go out on the streets, but no one can do anything like, all these events that, like were cancelled. Andy does this tuned in events where, I mean, you tell Paul about your tuned in events and obviously how it's been affected.
Well, the irony is not lost on me that it's a psychic event that I organise. So
Okay,
I organised
sure.
probably about 30. It's mostly in kind of like pubs and clubs and things like that, bringing psychic readers together. And I had my eye on the China situation, and I thought, not sure how this is going to play out. We might be all right, but I decided to chance it. So I organised something like 20 events over kind of March, April, May time. And of course, the lockdown came along, and so every single one had to be postponed. And obviously, being a psychic night, should have seen that one coming, mate. But yeah, it is what it is. But I kind of respond to that, and I know that's going to be a criticism, which is fair enough. I kind of respond to that in two ways. Number one, I kind of felt that maybe a lockdown was coming, or maybe the situation would escalate, having an eye on the Chinese situation. And number two, I don't really focus on negative situations or negative things. I think like attracts like, and when I'm doing my readings, I try and look into positive things and a connection with positivity. So lockdown and the virus is a very negative situation, and that's possibly why we as in the psychic community didn't get a heads up. But then again, maybe there are some people who did get it. Maybe there are some psychics and mediums who were warned that this was going to happen. Who knows?
What other things was you shown, Paul, in your future? I mean, you mentioned the Russia connection. Was it particularly to do with your future, your personal future, or the future of the humanity or the world?
Personal future, if I'm honest with you. It wasn't really more of it was more based on around myself. I saw things like I was going to be driving, and again, 14-year-old lad, disabled, and I was thinking I will never be driving. I really thought I would be quite, driven here, driven there, and but anyway, lo and behold, I'm driving. I'm able to drive. So I saw that. I saw sounds horrible as well. Future of like death. It sounds horrible, but I saw maybe it's me again, maybe it's my future, or maybe someone else's future. But I saw Russia again, and dying in with family at my bedside. I don't know
you saw your future death dying in the country of Russia. Oh.
Yeah.
And did you have an idea of the future or the age you might be?
It looked old. It looked very old. 80s, I would say.
80s.
That's it looked.
Not the 1980s.
No, 1980s. No,
Maybe you'll end up living in Russia.
That sounds like it from the prediction, doesn't it? The future. Now it's interesting because obviously, when you were 14, Russia was the arch enemy, I presume, and it was like the great bear of the woods, things like that. Yeah. So that didn't kind of sway you in any way. Obviously, the fact you married a Russian lady and it's all good and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah,
It's
I
interesting.
mean,
yeah.
yeah. The weird thing was though, I didn't see a white wedding. I thought if it was their predictions and stuff like that, why didn't I see a white wedding? Anyway, again, long story short, my wife been married before, and she didn't want a white wedding. She wanted a different kind of a dress. So it was a registered, what's it called, a registry marriage.
Yeah.
So registry, yeah. So it wasn't in a big church or anything like that. It was just a normal registrar office. So again, I didn't see that.
Wow.
Was that in England or Russia?
In Russia. Yeah,
You
so I
didn't
got married
have
in
two
Russia.
weddings then. Like a friend of mine who married a Greek guy, she had to get married in Greece. Then she got married again in England. And it's like it's the same guy, but it ended badly, unfortunately. So doing it twice didn't help. So, but I'm really interested in these out of body experiences and things like that. I mean, some people report seeing what is described as the astral cord, like an umbilical cord coming out their navel, going back to the body. But not everyone. You didn't see anything like that?
No, I didn't. No, it's just basically floating above, but at an angle. I was like, to the left and down. That's what I was looking at, really. But I was probably about 2-3 meters up. Sorry.
So I was going to say that the surroundings that you were taken to, was that through a tunnel of light? So you're kind of above your body, and then a tunnel of light, and then you said this well type thing, and the three beings, or how did that work?
It was basically like these three beings came to me in the room where I was looking at myself in surgery.
Yeah.
But then these three beings said, come away from there, or do you want to come with us, kind of thing. It was almost like, again, a conversation of agreement. And I said, okay, I don't want to see that anyway. I don't, it wasn't horrific to me, but literally I was thinking like, well, I want to go away now. Yeah, okay, that's fine. And so we both agreed, and then it was like being whisked off. So it was like a speedy fast tracking to another realm. And then before you know it, I'm literally in this realm where I could see even more souls. It wasn't just me and three souls. It was a whole country of souls. I would say a whole realm of souls. There was so many, so busy. No, there's no facial recognitions at all for me. I mean, people say I saw Jesus, I saw my granddad, I saw this and the other. I didn't see any faces at all, and that's what confuses me, to be honest with you. But no, that was just my take on it. It was just I thought I was a light being because I saw all the light beings there, and I thought, okay, I must be the same.
So everyone looked exactly the same in a sense, like big glowing figures.
Yeah.
And were they like all groups of three with a soul that they've just taken? Like, so you saw groups of four, maybe, for each.
I didn't really pay attention to groups, I'll be honest with you. I saw what I did see was, like I say, it was very busy. So I'd like to say I didn't really pay attention to like groups. I was more involved in my own life review as well. And when I was showing around, I saw like ones having re-energizing. So they basically I was explaining that these were having bad karma having to them. They had like, I don't know, like cancer or a very horrific death, that they had to like sit in like a booth of some kind and re-energize themselves with colors. So I saw that as well.
Interesting. Wow. Now that sounds like.
Go on.
I was going to say, it sounds like unlike anything I've heard of these after-death things, because most accounts I've read, most people sort of float out your body like you had, but then they say they see a tunnel of light, they float through it. There's a big bright white light that sort of says, do you want to stay here? Do you want to cross over? Do you want to come back? And it's almost like a sort of celestial being type of light force or whatever you want to call it. And that's where their decisions are made. But then 99% of them, from what I recollect reading about, say they never had any life review. They would just ask how they felt they're doing or something, and that was it. So it's interesting. Maybe it varies on according to the age you are or something, because
maybe
I've had quite a few actually talking about life reviews, Neil.
Have you? Yeah.
Yeah. And this thing about the three beings, I've also heard experiences where people have had like hooded beings where they're not negative or anything. They just look like monks, but they're facing away so you can't see them. But the person kind of like talking about their life and reviewing their life with these hooded beings, it's almost like the hooded beings represent parts of them. So they're almost kind of like reviewing themselves.
Do you know, I was thinking the same thing. Yeah, like higher selves or sort of thing. Yeah. So I just wonder if those three beings could have been your higher selves.
Yeah, that was it. That was the direction I was going to maybe on.
Yeah, possible. Yeah, I never thought of it that way, to be honest with you. So you got me thinking that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, have you heard of Robert Monroe by any chance?
I know. I haven't.
Okay. All right. He wrote a really classic book in the field of New Age, or whatever you want to call it, paranormal, called Journeys Out the Body in about 1970 or 71. And he was like a radio producer stroke engineer, and he was actually experimenting with learning different languages by playing a recording, say, of the French language through headphones as he went to sleep, by putting the tape recorder under the bed, and he'd play it all night. And he would do that. But after a while, he started to get real bad pains in his stomach. And I actually think in hindsight, it's probably the solar plexus. And he went and get checked up by the doctor, and the doctor could find nothing wrong with him. And he's baffled. But then maybe a week or so later, he found that this got worse. And he was actually started to roll out of his body and sort of fall through the floor. And that's where he discovered that he could get out of his body, and he learned actually techniques to get himself out on a sort of voluntary basis, you know, whenever he wanted to, sort of thing. But he felt it was triggered somehow by doing something with the recordings, and it somehow triggered something in his body or psyche or whatever that released his soul. And he never used to see sort of, afterlife sort of big white celestial balls and things like that. But he occasionally was helped out of his body by beings, helpers, he called them, who used to lift him under his arm and like fly out with him somewhere. and they would traverse. And sometimes he'd just go down the street and see his daughter in another part of the United States, or friends of his. And other times he would actually go onto the spirit world. He didn't call it the spirit world. He had names for it. He called Locale 1, which was Earth, Locale 2, which he said was the afterlife. Then he had a Locale 3, where he sometimes used to end up. It was almost like an alternate reality Earth, where he lived there, but as a different him with a different job and everything. And he sometimes took over that body for like 6 months or something, or what appeared to be like 6 months, you know. Very interesting stuff.
Wow.
So I would suggest, if you're interested in out of body stuff, is try and get a copy of Journeys Out the Body by Robert Monroe. It's a classic book.
I will. I'll definitely.
He gives instructions. I must warn listeners about this as well, and viewers. He gives instructions at the back of the book of how to actually do the process. But he does say it comes with a price. He says once you learn this process, it's like Pandora's box. You can't stop it. And my friend read the book. He learned the process, and then he regretted attempting to do it, because he said he used to shoot out of his body high above the earth and look down at the earth, which was round. This is before the arguments of flat earth started. He never said it was a flat earth. Then he used to come back to his body, but he said that was happening all the time. He couldn't stop it. So that's the thing. If you learn how to do it, be wary, because you could end up doing it, and it might pee you off going out your body too much, sort of thing. So that's for anybody that's there. Just that cautionary note there. If you don't want that, don't read the end of it or even be tempted. Just read the beginning parts of the book and the middle and stuff like that. But he used to have battles outside his body as well. Little creatures used to attack him and stuff like that, you know, and bite him and stuff, like children.
Wow.
Like imp type creatures. But he actually, again, later on in one of the other books, he actually sort of went back to that episode and said, I actually think they were part of me in some weird way, because the faces changed like his children or him or something like that. So, yeah, like you say, Andy, you know, were these beings the higher self, if you like, of Paul's? So maybe with Robert Monroe's case, these things that were attacking him were actually part of his own subconscious.
Actually, on that note, Paul, a lot of people report after having near-death experiences, suddenly psychic stuff begins to happen. They become very psychic, mediumistic. They see spirits. They can communicate with spirits. Did you have that kind of stuff happening in your life?
I think I've always have been quite open to that, if I'm honest with you. I've seen things when I was younger. Even before the near-death experience, I predicted something when I was, I'll say about 4 or 5 at the time. I was in a shop with my mum, and we was going between one shop to another shop in a village town. So it's like a little bit of a pathway between two shops. And I had a horrible prediction. I just felt like, Mum, let's get out of here, Mum. And I was really like, I was determined to get, Mum, I want to get out of here. Anyway, long story short, in my 20s, I get to the same situation in that same strip with a guy that took money off me, and I got so angry with him, and I was going to do something that I probably might have regretted. Bang! Something said, "Paul, come away from here," and that's where. So what I predicted in that childhood came to me at that moment, and it stopped me from doing what I was going to do next. Which was going to be probably beat him up, but But I was angry, I was livid, but again, something stopped me. It was maybe my like a past memory of that. So I predicted things as well, yeah. So yeah, I do have a little bit of psychicness anyway, a little bit, not totally, not as very good as yourselves, but that's why I do. Yeah, I do have a little bit of experience.
I'm sure it could be developed.
But the reason I kind of like asked that is because talking about the psychic attacks and the imps and the biting and stuff, I found that at the early stages of kind of opening up mediumistically and psychically, back then I was all love and lights. This is quite a few years ago, and it was within a spiritualist environment, so it was all angels and clouds and love and light, and it was all fantastic until I started getting weird stuff happening, dream intrusions by not particularly nice entities, and weird things happening around the house that were not particularly nice. And then it started kind of being quite evident that actually what had happened is I'd opened a door, and as well as the love and light coming in, which I still believe is out there, some of the nasties were coming in as well. So I think with this kind of thing, near-death experiences and opening up mediumistically, you've got to be really careful, as Neil says, because you can open up as you say, Pandora's box of God knows what else is out there, imps or demonics or earth beings. It's just crazy out there.
Yeah. So do you think it's like a 50-50, like duality, good and bad, obviously in here and out there? Is that your thoughts?
Exactly. I think it is 50-50. And I also think, and I don't know how you feel about this, Paul, I think we're in a spiritual war right now on this planet, on Earth. I think it's dark versus light. And I think there's a Japanese saying that says, "Do not be the nail that I don't know what's the word, shows itself, because that's the one that's going to get hit on the head with the hammer."
Right.
I think that's absolutely true spiritually and psychically. I think if you open up psychically and spiritually, you could end up trying to help humanity and trying to awaken people and trying to kind of think outside the prison system. And at that point, you've got the guards. And I think the guards are these demonic entities and the negative ones that think, oh, there's one that's about to jump the cage. Let's go after him. I don't know what your thoughts on that, but I think
I can understand that. Definitely, that resonates with me. Definitely, yeah. I think there is definitely. I think there's also maybe like a certain amount of consciousness that's restricted in maybe in our bodies, and maybe our DNA is probably preventing certain people from going out of the box. Type of thing, because I'm out of the box. I think my consciousness is open. I think it always has been open, even when I was younger. Like I say, I've seen things, so I think I've always have been more open than some people naturally. But some people can grow. But again, like you said, I think there are certain things, entities that will keep those, like in prison.
It's like the sheepdogs. I think there are actual beings out there that are like sheepdogs. And when they see people kind of about to kind of expand their own consciousness, they kind of round them up back into the sheep pen. And now we're going into the David Icke territory of the sheep and the sheeple and the sheep pen. I don't know what you think of David Icke, but I think there's a lot of strange stuff, but there's a lot of stuff that really resonates that I feel is quite true.
Didn't you go down to the Trafalgar Square thing with David Icke? You guys on Unite Planet, didn't you? No, well, you went somewhere.
No, I went to the Birmingham one. It was like a freedom gathering, and there was Gareth Icke there.
Oh, right, okay.
I've seen David Icke in a couple of conferences, and I like what he does mainly. I question about the 9/11 things a little bit. I don't think there was, in my eyes, there was what's it called, demolished by the usual methods. I think it was something maybe more like a directed energy weapon on that day.
Dr. Judy Wood theory or case for that, isn't it?
Yeah. That's more my learning of it. But so far, anyway, like I say, I'm very open. I'm willing to change anyway. I'm willing to be taught. I don't keep myself boxed in on one thing. If my mind changes, then it will change. But that's where I am so far with that. Yeah. And what about yourselves in regards to David Icke? What's your thoughts about David Icke?
Go for it, Neil.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, I first read David Icke books back in about 1989. I think it was The Truth Vibrations. And I thought it was a bit sort of woolly at the time. It was a basic kind of, hey, I found mediumships and this is what they do kind of book. Because then I lent it to a friend of mine who thought it was good. But then I started reading the Seth books by Jane Roberts, which is really in-depth, heavy kind of channeled material stuff. Which like kind of, whoa, stuff is really heavy stuff. And so David Icke stuff seemed like kindergarten stuff in comparison to it. So I left him for a long, long time. I concentrated on the Seth books and still read the Seth books. And then about 15 years ago, someone bought me one of the more recent David Icke books, which had 9/11 in it, for a birthday present. It was a great big thick book and talked about Diana's death and 9/11 and all that sort of stuff. It was very interesting. So I thought, oh, he's come on a long way since, So, and of course, I've seen his videos and interviews and things like that, and he's kind of changed a bit over the years. Obviously, I suppose he would be the first to admit that he's evolved as well with his understanding of stuff, But I thought it was interesting that all those years ago on the Wogan show, people were absolutely laughing their heads off at him now, and now see the bloke who can fill out theatres and all sorts of places and big and all the people come to see him at these protests and things like that. They're all thinking, crikey, I'm hopefully though all those people that have seen him live were not the ones that are laughing at him back then, and the open-minded people perhaps watching the Wogan show, which and just thinking, no, this guy's onto something, but we don't quite know what, but let's go with him and see where he goes with it. And thankfully they did. And yeah, he's gone through his little phase of changing his colors of his outfits or something, his turquoise jumpsuits or whatever he was wearing back then. And, he's evolved and he's got a much more greater handle on things, I think, now. And I do respect what he does. I really think he's, he's a good guy overall. I may not agree or believe everything he says. I wasn't so sure about the reptilian thing. And I still haven't seen evidence for reptilian, but then I keep hearing about it. So I'm thinking, well, maybe they are out there. I'm like you say, I'm open-minded. I'm be prepared. You hear all these other things about reptilians and other people that have said they've seen them and that are nothing to do with David Icke. So you think, well, maybe there is something to it. So that's my take on David Icke. I'm prepared to give the guy time of day, as it were.
Yeah.
I think with me, with David Icke, I was actually quite pissed off watching the Wogan show because it was. I don't know if you remember, but it was quite hyped to begin with. Like just before it went on air, it was quite hyped. Oh, this is the man that can speak to God, or the man that's going to tell us the future. And I was quite looking forward to it. Sat down, watched it, and Wogan was just ripping into him, and I just thought. And at the end of the Wogan show, I was thinking, well, what's he actually, what are these big secrets? What is it that David Icke is wanted to tell the world? Because he's, we haven't got the opportunity to see that because Wogan's ruined it. So I was quite annoyed with that. I didn't actually touch Icke. I was going through my kind of love and light stage. This is kind of like year 2000. So this was kind of like spiritualism, love and light, rainbows and unicorns, working with spirit, all that kind of thing. Then I started getting the weird entities or the weird experiences turning up, which made me realize that this world isn't quite so love and light. I then got kind of talking to some spiritual people who pointed me in the direction of some of his lectures. And at this point, they were online. Whether it was YouTube or not, I don't know. It might have been another platform back then, kind of like mid 2000s, I'd say. And I kind of like you, Neil, I wasn't sure about this reptilian thing at first. I actually thought, oh, that's the guy that believes the Queen is a lizard. That's the kind of like the typical perception of what the mainstream media would think. But then, well, I think the first one I saw was Freedom Road in terms of like one of his videos, which was something like 6 hours long, something like that. And I was just addicted to it. He covered so many things, because he doesn't just go into the reptiles thing. He goes into the banking system, the Illuminati, the Freemasonic links, all of that kind of thing. The more I was listening, the more I was thinking, actually, maybe he's onto something here. And unfortunately, where we are now in 2020, it's all bloody coming true. We've got the microchip agenda, we've got the vaccine agenda, we've got the pandemic, we've got the New World Order. I don't know if you've seen the scenes in Australia at the moment in their markets. They've got like stormtroopers, police dressed like stormtroopers, and they've got kind of full lockdown in Melbourne. It's just crazy. And a place like Australia that's supposed to be free and happy and kind of, surfing and all that kind of
neighbours.
Neighbours. And now we've got martial law, essentially. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, home and away, crikey.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
Where do we go with
exactly. Well, I was going to ask about yourselves then. So obviously you know a little bit about myself. What about yourselves? How did the Paranormal Peep show come together?
Well, one of those happy accidents of serendipity, I guess, because I ran the High Wycombe Paranormal Meetup group in High Wycombe in Buckinghamshire for a number of years, and I saw Facebook Irene Allen, who looked to be a producer of radio shows or presenting, and I thought, oh, she might know a few people that I could maybe, ask her for potential people that might want to come and talk at my group. So I friend requested her, or we hooked up, chatted, even on phoned on the same day that we hooked up. So we had a little chat on the phone, which was quite nice. And it turned out she started asking me for people instead. so instead of me, culling all her guests, I ended up giving her names and addresses of all sorts of people who've since become presenters on the thing, like Philip Kinsella and Ronnie Kinsella, people like that. And so she said to me, would I like to be a guest on the Paranormal UK radio network? And I said, yeah, sure. So with her and Mark Johnson, her co-host, who's in the United States, I guested on their show and did a 2-hour chat with them about fairies, ghosts, spirits, that kind of stuff. And then it was about 2 or 3 weeks later, they said to me, would I be able to possibly run their show for one episode, because they both happened to be going on holiday, not to the same place, but because they've both got the respective partners, they just happened to be booked holidays at the same time, and they needed their recording doing. So she asked me, would I be interested in doing a show? So I said, yeah, sure, okay. Now she teamed me up with a guy who I spoke to over Skype and was all going to go ahead with it, but when it came down to it, he didn't show up. And so I thought, oh, crikey. So I knew that, I was going to try and have a little chat with him pre-show, maybe a few days before, just to sort of, everything okay, all going good, I'll see you on such and such a date. Never heard back from him. So I thought, oh, crikey. So I thought, right, I'll contact Andy, who I met at a psychic workshop a few years earlier. And that's where we started doing our voices. I think I mentioned that. Do your President Trump, Andy. Do your President Trump.
We're going to have a fantastic time here. Vote Republican for this election, okay? We can't have the communists in. We don't. Joe Biden is out. Bad guy. Very bad guy.
And I was doing my Mr. Burns. Welcome. Time to release the hounds. Time to release the virus. And time to release the vaccines. So, yeah, I was doing my Mr. Burns and all that. And that's Crepitine. And that's out there chocolate cake for a Wurzel. Wurzel gummage. And so we got on well. So we kind of, stayed in contact with each other. And so I messaged Andy. I said, look, do you want to be a guest on this radio show? Tell me all about your psychic experiences and stuff. And then I said, we got to interview someone else. I said, hang around for part 2 of the show where we're going to interview another guy, but you can be the presenter with me on that one. So on part 2 of that show, we both sort of co-hosted the second part of it and asked our guests various questions. And then basically some point later, Irene and Mark said, look, we're going to expand our network. We think you guys should do a show together. What do you think? We said, yeah, sure. Okay. So Andy thought of the name, the Paranormal Peep Show, which, Andy, you can say, why is it called the Paranormal Peep Show? People must want to know.
Because although the subject matter is serious and we do have serious conversations, we're also slightly eccentric and slightly nutty. And we do have a sense of humor. Therefore, we wanted a title that's kind of like a little bit cheeky, bit cheeky. So that's and it just kind of like flows off the tongue. Paranormal Peep Show. It's just kind of like,
Yeah,
yeah,
I love it.
it creates
Yeah.
a smile, and that's what we
Mm.
want.
Exactly, that's all about, isn't it?
Yeah. So yeah, we've been running the Paranormal Peep Show for approximately 4 years, and my God, doesn't time fly? And we've interviewed Anthony Peake, I think, in one of our first shows, and I know that you've interviewed him as well. So it's nice to see that you're catching some of the same guests as us. As
How many interviews have we done, Neil? 'Cause I really haven't kept.
how many interviews have we done? I don't know. I've never counted it up, but I did start to upload some of our shows to the new channel.
Oh, good, yeah.
I was having problems with that actually, but I realized what it was. That I had to give them my phone number on YouTube, and once I gave them my phone number, they let me upload longer shows. They'll let you upload shows for 15 minutes in duration.
Okay.
But if you don't give them your phone number, that's it. So I realized, this is where I'm going wrong, because it kept spent all day trying to upload these shows and nothing was happening. I thought, what's going on? So then I realized, I've got to put my phone number in. And once it was that, the gates were open. So I've started to upload some more shows, and I'll do that in the next few days as well.
Bizarre.
So
for anyone listening, Neil, it's on YouTube. If people type in the Paranormal Peep Show, they should find it, shouldn't they?
They should do. I mean, if there's any doubts, go to Neil Peel at the minute, NeilPeel. And if you're watching on YouTube, it's likely that you might have found us on there. But we have a dedicated Paranormal Peep Show YouTube channel, which Andy has instigated and started up. So we will be uploading all old shows to that as well. So from I think about the 17th of July, you should start to see some shows appearing on that platform as well. So yeah, that's where we're at, and we're always happy to chat with anyone that's got anything of interest to say on a paranormal kind of subject. We do delve into the conspiracy stuff because we've interviewed people like Marcus Allen, who talked about the Apollo moon landings, which was interesting and challenged at the same time because you're doing it without vision. You're doing it as a podcast, and you're trying to describe the Apollo moon hoax photos, if they are that, over the radio. And you think, what are you talking about? Shadows, lights, and flags and things like that. So that's a challenge in itself. But that forked off into another road, which we then developed as something called the Apollo Detectives, which Andy and I take part in, and we have a few other people that co-host. Ben Emlyn Jones hosts it for us, and we get all these Apollo people, hoax theorists, if you like, or whatever they call it, researchers from around the world, and we'll take part in a session like this over Skype. And they'll do their presentations and show us all their video clips or pictures they've researched, or holes in the Apollo record, that kind of stuff, which is very interesting. I find that sort of thing.
There are many.
Yeah. I mean, what's your thoughts on the Apollo record, Paul? Any ideas where you think it's fake or real? Or
I think it's if I'm more siding towards one way, it'll be to say it's fake. Because after interviewing Andrew Johnson. He's been a regular guest on our show. He's researched it so much, and he's told me about the orange juice. I don't know if you heard about the orange juice
leaking in the helmet.
I thought that to me was the biggest clue to me, saying it was faked for that reason. What's your thoughts about it?
For the orange juice, for those that need to know, that was in a film called crikey, I can't remember the title now. I know which film he's talking about on YouTube. But it's basically on Apollo 17, I believe it was, where orange juice got onto one of the films of the Hasselblad cameras, and I can't remember the details. It somehow leaked out into the helmet or something, and they said that it got round the ring of the helmet. And Andrew Johnson was basically saying, and so this other guy was saying, that if that's the case, then it shows that these helmets aren't sealed super tight for vacuums of space, because orange juice can obviously leak in them. If you can, and he said, air molecules are smaller than water molecules, so obviously the air could escape out your suit, and so in about maybe a minute or two, your suit would have decompressed or something. So
that's right.
That was one of the holes in that one. I've also seen videos where there's guys banging hammers onto rocks on the moon. You can hear the sound of the hammer. Now they say the defenders of Apollo say that that's because the suit is acting like a drum, like a vibration, and it's going up into the suit and being picked up by the microphone on their Snoopy cap, which is what they wear inside the helmet. But then again, this guy in this video shows this strap or something. They untie a strap off something on the lunar surface, and this guy just throws it away because they weren't very good with the environment back then in the 70s. They just threw it onto the moon surface, but it actually caught the lunar module, and you can hear a clunk as it hits it. And you're thinking, now where can you hear that? You know, why are you hearing that clunk of the noise? Where's the microphone vessel to pick that up? Is it inside the lunar module switched on, or is it being picked up by their Snoopy caps or something like that? Because obviously, if you're trying to fake an Apollo landing, you wouldn't have microphones on set to pick up the sound, because that's the idea. You don't want that. So there must be microphones either in the Snoopy caps that are picking it up as it hits the clunk or something like that. So again, that's a little bit fishy. And then we've seen flag waving. Yeah,
you've also got the international space station. When they're doing repairs and things using hammers, it's silent. You see them
silent.
like completely silent. So which is it? Is it there's a microphone that can pick it up, or is it a microphone that can't pick it up? It can't be both.
Yeah. And also the other thing that Andrew Johnson, I think, mentioned was the International Space Station. This is actually something that Jared White pointed out, I believe, that is that the flag on the International Space Station, or the Russian space station, I think Mir or something, it was the flag was completely pulverized by micrometeorites after 6 months and radiation and things like that. And they're saying now that from the lunar reconnaissance orbiter photographs, where they're supposedly looking down on the landing sites, you know, and this lunar reconnaissance orbiter is orbiting the moon, taking photos from 25 kilometers high, and they said, "Oh look, there's the flag." But they said that, you know, the people like Andrew Johnson and Jared White are saying that that flag shouldn't be there because it would have been pulverized by multi meteorites, and the radiation would have just burnt the flag away, you know, if it did go to the moon. And yet here is the flag being displayed on the lunar surface in these photographs. So they're interesting points as well. So we find the whole thing very, very interesting to debate, and we just go deeper down the rabbit hole for that, don't we, Andy?
We do. I love it. I love some of NASA's explanations as well. So the missing telemetric data, reams and reams of telemetric data. Oh, it's in a warehouse. It's missing. We don't know where it is. You know.
Yes. And it all got very fishy because the guy that was killed on the Apollo launch pad, I forget which one it was, Apollo 6 or something. Forget his name now, who was burnt with the other two astronauts, and he was Gus Grissom.
Yes,
Gus Grissom, Ed White, and Roger Chaffee were burnt in the Apollo. It might be an Apollo 1 fire or something on the launch pad. And he hung a lemon outside the capsule to say the whole thing was a lemon. He actually called a press conference to say the whole thing was a complete shambles and they're never going to get to the moon unless they do something drastically. And so this guy, after the Apollo 1 fire where they were killed, was commissioned, and I forget his name now, to investigate the whole thing. And he came out with a 500-page report. In fact, he came out with a bigger report, but 500 pages of it still exists somewhere. And he was killed on a railroad accident, wasn't he? Where his family,
his car broke down on a railroad.
And then it was hit by the train, and the train didn't stop.
No.
You could see it from miles away, and it didn't stop. It just went straight through it. So his family were killed completely. So again, that's all a bit of a suspicious to me. And there's all these little suspicious cover-ups going on with the whole thing. It doesn't quite play true. Now, that's one part of NASA from sort of 50 plus years ago. But obviously, we've got NASA today, which are different teams. They're different people. They might still have people in there that are, you know, like the CIA might still be handling the Apollo story, perhaps in the background. But obviously, NASA progresses. You get all these other people take over, and they're doing missions to Mars and things. And now we're hearing, of course, the latest news is about Venus with supposedly some gas or smell or something in the upper atmosphere, 35 miles up, which they think might contain alien life. What do you guys think to that?
Paul, you go.
No, you go for it, friend. You go for it first, my friend.
I was going to say, it could turn out. Remember the Mars thing where they said they found life on Mars because they found some meteorite with Mars, and
wormy things, and
it turned out that the wormy things might actually originate from Earth, but I suppose that was found on Earth. I think how will we ever know, really, unless we send a probe there? So we'd have to wait for the information coming back. But then again, we're trusting NASA to give us the correct information coming back. But then another part is kind of like, is this preparing mankind for the eventual news that there is life out there? Because I don't know if you saw the interview where Trump was asked about what goes on in Area 51 and has he ever seen Area 51, and he kind of smirks and goes, oh, I can't tell you, but it's very interesting. Yeah, he basically said, I can't tell you, but it is interesting. It's very interesting. Do you guys think there will ever be disclosure? I mean, it's the $64,000 question, but do you think they'll ever come out with it?
For myself, I think there's that. What's the pop singer? Not pop singer. It's like a famous American pop singer that's done disclosure in America. I forgot what it's called now, but to the Stars Academy.
Oh, Tom DeLonge.
Yeah. I think that is itself, I think, some kind of a disclosure, drip feeding us. But I think that's also very heavily CIA, FBI, or whatever. I think it's not very, I can't say the right word for it, but I don't trust it. I don't trust that at all. But in regards to disclosure, I think they'll just drip feed us, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree, because if you come out and the president says, look, ladies and gentlemen, we've found life on XYZ planet and they've landed here 50 years ago, we've been negotiating with them, and all your iPhones have actually come from these people or something, then we're going to go, oh my God. And really, some of the arguments are they can't disclose too much because it would overturn religions, and millions of people believing in Christianity or whatever it may be, their whole worlds will be turned upside down. And they'll have to rewrite the Bible in some way or something, which that won't be the first time. So I suspect that what they're doing is this drip, 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 drip feed. Every 10 years, you get a little nugget of alien something or other. Oh, we discovered exoplanets outside the solar system. They might contain life. And then suddenly, oh, we discovered this on Venus. It might contain life. It's this weird cloud that smells like fish or something like that, they said. And that's the recipe for making life. Now, it's an interesting thing that is that they have sent probes to Venus since the 1960s, apparently, way through to the 70s, the Russians included. And, because it's so hot, because it's so close to the sun, these probes might only last about 2 or 3 hours before they melt and cease to function. So you have got photographs from the surface of Venus when you see the landing pad of the craft, and there's, you can see it, and it works for a little bit. But one guy, and I forget who it is, pointed out, saying, well, these probes have come down by parachute through the atmosphere of Venus, which is full of acid rain, really hot temperatures that would burn anything. So how come it hasn't burnt the parachutes and the string? And so, maybe it's special fireproof parachutes. I don't know. But I thought, that's a good point. Yeah. Why didn't those parachutes burn up in the heat as it came down with the really high temperatures and things? I mean, it's supposedly cooler in the upper atmosphere, 35 miles up, but as you get closer where the heat can't escape, that's where you're going to have real problems. And those parachutes would have burnt up, presumably, the closer you got to the planet. So, just a moot point that has been pointed out before, really. But then again, there's people like the Aetherius Society that have stated in interviews with us that there is life on Venus and other planets like Saturn, but there's spiritual beings existing on those planets, which might be hard for some people to understand because they're so much more used to physical beings that you touch. But they're saying there's spiritual beings that inhabit those planets, which, maybe that's true. If we got ghosts that inhabit our planet in some shape or form, or weird fairy folk or whatever, then maybe you've got something over there that inhabit their own kind of fairy realm on Venus or something. Maybe there are. It could be that. I mean, there used to be claims of abductees and UFO experiences back in the 50s that said, "Oh yeah, I've been taken aboard a UFO and they took me to their planet Venus and things like that." And everyone came from Venus in those days on these abductee stories. Now, maybe if we're stretching a little bit of credibility, we've been told all the time there's no life on any other planet in our solar system apart from Earth. Now, we're again taking NASA's word for that. We can't check ourselves. So how do we know that hasn't been a lie since it was discovered? Because they have had reports out where they say that if you discover life on planets, you can't really tell the public. You got to tread really carefully. So it could be that we're given the story that planet's way too hot, but in fact it might be actually okay in reality. And there could be there could be civilizations down there. We just don't know. I mean, Venus is covered in clouds and things, so you can't exactly see cities and things through the clouds. But maybe there are. I just don't know. But I thought, as we're being drip fed this information, that there could be, no one was looking at Venus. Everyone was looking at Mars, weren't they? And suddenly everyone says, no, actually, it's look over your shoulder, back towards the sun. It's Venus we should be looking at. That's where all the gooey stuff is, and that's the stuff we should be sticking on our petri dishes and probing and stuff, And there's all these missions being planned to Mars and costing billions of dollars. Really, they should have just sent a few things in orbit and things to fly through the atmosphere of Venus a bit more.
Yeah. And also, I think it's also to do with fuel. I think because also we've been using fuel to get from A to B. And if we get to find out that there's actually UFOs able to get from A to B, but without any petrol or gas, whatever, and it's just free energy, that's going to pee off a lot of rich, people that own, petrol stations and, oil companies and stuff. I think. So that's the thing. I think that's the main reason why they don't want to disclose it, in my opinion.
Now, I think what we'll take a break here, because I know that you do have some experiences with UFOs, don't you, Paul? So maybe we could hear about those in part 2, which would be very interesting to discuss as we're going that way. So I'll just like to say thank you very much for everyone listening to part 1 of the Paranormal Peep show. We're doing a special with Unite Planet. And so it's from Unite Planet. We'll all see you in a minute. Bye for now.
And welcome back, Mr. Trump. How did you find the black hole?
Well, I found there's no evidence of Russian collusion there, just an empty void. So instead I listened to Paranormal UK Radio Network.
Hi, welcome back to part 2 of the Paranormal Peep Show with myself, Neil Geddes Ward, and Andy Chaplin. And we're talking to Paul Northridge of Unite Planet. He's minus one of his assistants, and that's Johny Sinclair, who's going to be celebrating his birthday. So Paul has kindly stepped up to the mark, and he's acting as 2 presenters instead of 1. So you got to do a funny voice now. Do your co-host.
Hello, I'm Johnny.
I'll surely appreciate it. Yeah, we've done our funny voices now. It's your turn. So just before the break, Paul, we were talking about UFOs. Now, you told me that you have had a UFO experience yourself. How did that come about, and when was it?
It was about, I'll say about 13, 14 years ago now. And so I'm driving with my wife, with my daughter, in just about 2 miles away from home. And my daughter spots the UFO first in like a field area. And she's saying, Dad, it's definitely not an airplane. It's definitely not a helicopter. It's definitely not a Chinese lantern. And obviously I'm driving, I'm doing 40, 50 miles an hour. And I said, I can't do anything about it. So as I'm driving a bit more, then Yulia, my wife, says, yeah, I can see it now. And it's definitely something I've never seen before. She's trying to describe it to me. And so anyway, long story short, it basically followed us to almost to our house. And so I parked up outside on the street where we live. And it's actually then floating above one of our neighbors' home. But I'll say about maybe like 500, no, not 500, maybe like 200 feet above the house. And it was an orb. It was like going like round and round in different colors.
Wow.
And it was basically saying like, hi, I'm here, I exist. And then it just shot up in the air. It just like vanished within not even like 2 seconds. It was gone. But it definitely went upwards.
Did you have any missing time, or is it just one of these kind of like remote control kind of UFOs, do you think?
I don't recall any missing time, but obviously some people say that they didn't even feel like they missed any time. I didn't feel like I missed any time. My wife and daughter didn't feel like they missed time. But yeah, that was my first ever UFO sighting, and I also had a feeling that I'd probably been abducted, and that was this year.
Really?
Which is a bit unusual as well. I can tell you a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure, please do.
Basically, it was in late February, early March, and I woke up to around about 3 o'clock in the morning, feeling like my body's vibrating. I saw my hands in front of me again, almost like I had a near-death experience. Saw my hands, but there was like this time it wasn't going bright red or anything. They were actually dissolving in front of me, and as I'm looking at that, and then I'm looking to the side, and I see an alien, a little grey alien to the side of the bed. And I'm thinking like, whoa, what's happening here? And then that's it, passed out, and I don't recall anything after that. But it was just, some people say it's probably like an out-of-body experience that I had. I don't know. I don't know if it was an abduction. I don't know. But I keep my options open really to it.
Did you have any strange markings or anything when you come?
Yeah.
Came out of it and woke up?
I didn't notice anything like that. But
no implants or anything.
No, as far as I'm aware.
Oh. Now, interestingly, so this was in the middle of the night. Now, obviously, when I go to sleep and the lights are off, I can't see much. So, what I'd ask you, how can you see a grey alien in the darkness of a room? Is it glowing, or is there a light shining on it from maybe outside?
Good point, actually. I don't know. I just saw it. I don't maybe like I say, it might have been me having a bit of a weird dream. Even at the time, it could be just having an out of body experience. But I definitely felt like I woke up and I felt like I saw it. But I didn't see any. Yeah, I don't know about light wise. We don't sleep with the lights on or anything like that. So, the only thing I would say that my daughter does is to have the light on the top landing, and we did get light coming in from that through the door.
Yeah.
That's anything, but not an awful lot of light, enough to see.
Starlight coming through the window or anything like that, or moonlight.
Could have been that as well. We did get that.
It's interesting to talk about the vibrations in your hand, because going back to Robert Monroe, who we talked about in part 1, who was the guy that discovered he could go out of his body voluntarily, he would induce the vibrations, he said in his book, and he would imagine vibrations going over his body. And that's what happened. These vibrations would kind of oscillate up and down his body. And that's the kind of thing that pulled him out. And what you've described there, the vibrations in your hand, suggests to me that maybe you were coming out of your body with the vibrational technique, and the alien's about to grab you astrally or something, perhaps. And that might explain why you could see it, because you were seeing it with your astral eyes, and it was an astral grey, if you like, not physically manifested in the material world. So if like your daughter came in the room, she would have seen you potentially asleep on the bed and nothing would have been untoward. Whereas astrally or out of the body, you were floating up perhaps, or coming out, and this alien was going to get you or take you or whatever it wanted to do, but it perhaps subdued you, knocked you out or something, and did what it had to do. Now, Philip Kinsella, who is a friend of ours, and we're going to interview him again soon, he had a similar experience where he had gone out of his body and even gone through this glass in the house, straight out through the window, and was taken up to a craft of some sort. But he was gone up there astrally to the craft, which is interesting. And he was examined astrally. So he was actually out of his body. So it's an interesting thing. So I don't recall him talking about vibrations as such, because I got confused when he kept saying, "Oh yeah, I went out of my body," but then I was on board the ship and they were examining me, and I'm thinking, "What? Hang on a minute, go back. Are we talking about your astral body they're looking at?" And he goes, "Yeah." So it's very interesting that
yeah. So do you think they're doing it for research, or do you think they're healing certain people, or what's your thoughts of why they do these abductions?
Andy, what's your thoughts?
I would personally say have a look at humans and how they work with animals. In other words, you can't really pinpoint one particular group and say, you know, or one particular species, be they human or alien, and say this is what they're doing. Because with animals, there are people that go hunting animals. There are people who do research and kind of like stay away from animals just on a scientific observational role. There are some people that actively go and help animals, helping orangutans and helping elephants and stuff. I think the same with the aliens. I think there's different agendas with different types. Even if you've got greys, there's no reason why you can't have positive or negative greys. Some of them might be purely scientific, seeing how we're evolving, seeing what we're doing, but kind of like neutral. Some of them could be positive, healing, helping, raising vibrations, and some of them could be negative. Some of them could be taking our energy. There's a lot of kind of reports of these negative experiments and things, kind of like where they're putting things up your nostril and kind of causing pain and stuff just for the hell of it, just for, you know, doing it. God knows. I think it's so complicated, and there's probably so many different species with so many different agendas. We just don't know what the hell's going on. I think we on this planet as humans are basically goldfish in a goldfish bowl, and you've got all these other species whizzing around. It's just like, look at the stupid goldfish; they can't get out of that bowl. I think that's what's going.
Well, we only have a
that makes
memory of
sense.
5 seconds, don't we, as goldfish, you know. Certainly not much of a memory you have an abduction. I mean, the other thing is we talk about the holographic universe, where the whole universe itself is an illusion or some sort of projection. So if that is the case, then the Greys have got to be part of that projection along with reptilians and whoever else is out there. And maybe they're part of the program, and what we think is a real thing probing us or taking us on board a craft, it's all part of this facade. You know, once you put your nickel in the slot, you know, this is the show you're going to get, you know. And when the nickel runs out, the program changes and you're in a different level, you know. And these creatures aren't, you know, they're real, but they're not as real. Just like we're real, but we're not as real because we're all part of this holographic universe. That's what people have spoken about as such, you know. And there's some people out there I think they can prove that we're holographic universe. I don't know how, but it's an interesting theory, really, you know. But we're stuck in it at the minute. We're on the holodeck of the Enterprise as such, you know.
It gets deeper than that. So when we talk about near-death experiences, there are some people that talk about this light going into the light and meeting beings and stuff is actually still part of a control system of sorts. Whether it's a grey control system or whether it's an entity or interdimensional control system, but it could still be a part of the matrix, so to speak. Even if you think you're in an afterlife, you think you're meeting relatives, but are you, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I thought we were going to get out alive, you know, but we're still going in that tumble of a washing machine, really, isn't it? It's crazy world, you know. My goodness. So, have you seen UFOs, Andy? Because I know you're really interested in the subject.
I'm going to say possibly. Do you remember the time we did a Paranormal Peep show where I said, like, literally the evening before I was out for a walk and I saw like two very bright white lights. It was almost like a flashlight going on and then off and then on and then off. So it wasn't so much whizzing, and it could have been a plane, but it didn't really have the characteristics of planes. Where I go walking, there's planes all the time because I live near on the outskirts of the M25. So we've got Stansted Airport, we've got Luton Airport, we've got Gatwick, we've got Heathrow. So I know what planes look like. I know how they react in the sky. You know, you just get to know what planes look like. This one was different. It was bright white. So with planes, usually the white is kind of like a yellowish white color. This was pure white. And it was just the way it came on and off was very odd. So I'll mark that down as a possibly. Could have a logical explanation, which I always do look for. I think it's really important not to go woo-woo straight away. So to have logical first of all. But I couldn't really think of anything. And it was very, very, very high up. And it wasn't a satellite, because a satellite you see going quite slowly and it's like a trajectory. It wasn't helicopters way too high up. It wasn't a drone way too high up. Plane possibly, but it didn't really seem like it would be a plane. What about yourself?
Yeah,
Neil?
nothing, absolutely nothing. You know,
Have you seen a
we,
ghost, Neil?
well, possibly, yeah, because
Okay.
Paul and Johnny asked me that, and this is going back about 1989, something like that, and I was with my then girlfriend, and I stayed at her house in a spare bedroom because it was her parents' house at the time, and she, interesting, in the same bedroom, maybe a few years before, had woken up in that bedroom and saw this man standing over her with a fiddle, like a violin, just standing there looking at her. And she went and put her head under the covers, sort of thing. So maybe that particular room had something going on in it. So I was staying in that room some years later, kind of forgot all about this weird fiddler ghost or whatever this thing was. And I woke up in the night because I could hear someone talking to me, and it's like, if you think of the voice of the adults in the Charlie Brown cartoons, like the teachers, yeah, it was exactly like that. I could hear something being spoken, but I couldn't really work out what was being said.
Yeah,
but I could see some baggy trousers, like really old baggy trousers.
Sucks, it?
Yeah, baggy trousers. Yeah. Let me do that little bit of a jive, I think. Baggy trousers. Saw the top half a little bit like a shirt, but couldn't see a head. It was just not there, and it was dark. But again, how do you see these things in the dark? God knows, but I saw something just vaguely in the darkness. And it was doing this kind of like Charlie Brown teacher's voice. And I was going, what? It kept talking to me. And in the end, I sort of thought, I wasn't sure what was going on. I just turned over and went back to sleep. And then I kind of thought about it. Oh, crikey, did I see a ghost or something? So I don't know whether it's a ghost or it's just me sleepwalking or hallucination. I just don't know. But maybe the room had something going on with it because my ex-girlfriend saw that fiddler guy standing over her.
Is it an old house? Do you know the history of it?
No, it wasn't actually, because it was a house that had, back in about 1980, had extensions put to it. So it had had a new roof put to it with the new bedrooms and new floors and things. So where this fiddler was seen and where I saw this ghost was essentially not in existence back prior to 1980. So I actually at the time thought that maybe it was the spirit of my then girlfriend's granddad because he had the same sort of clothes as him. So I was thinking, oh shit, he's dead, But the next time I saw him, he was alive and well. So I don't know what it was. I mean, he died like a year and a half, 2 years later, or something. So I can't say it was connected. But never seen a ghost. But of course, I felt them around me. Definitely felt them. Definitely seen the effects of them. Felt ghosts coming into my aura, and felt spirit moving in as we've done readings, because Andy's a medium and I've done mediumistic stuff myself, so I've done readings on people as well. And sometimes you get a really strong sensation of someone moving into your aura as you get in the reading, and other times you get a really weak connection, and sometimes you get two battling at once to try and get your attention, sort of thing. Interestingly, there was mediums that could handle that back in the day. There was a guy called what was his name now? Gordon Smith, and he was an extraordinary medium from like yesteryear. He died in about 1991 or 92. I happened to see him in 1989. I was quite young at the time, and I'm very privileged to see him at the place in Uxbridge Civic Centre it was. And he was famed to be able to give two readings at once. He would sort of give a reading to one person, say, near the front, and there'd be a person on another tier of, say, the theatre, and be doing readings to them. So he goes, you, sir, I've got your wife, blah, 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 blah. And he goes, and I'm coming back to you, and blah, 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 blah. He'd be talking to that person down there. And he goes, now, coming back to you up there, he says blah, 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 and you live at such and such a road. And then he come back to the other book. But he would give away people's phone numbers. He'd give away their addresses. There was one fantastic episode that I witnessed. There was a guy at the front, and he said, I'm coming to you, sir. He said, now, the coat you're wearing tonight is not the coat that you originally set out to come and see me tonight. In fact, I'm being shown that you came out and got into your car, and then you decided that the coat wasn't comfortable. So you got out of your car, you went back in, you threw the coat back on your bed, you opened up the wardrobe, you took out the coat that you're now wearing, and you came here, and my helpers, meaning spirit guides or whatever, have gone down to the car park below us, because it was a multi-story building, and they had a multi-story car park below us, and he said they've just seen your car, and they've come back and said it's a red sports car with the first letters of PYE something something, and he gave the rest of the letters. This bloke sat there, went like that,
Wow.
He goes, yes, exactly as it was, So this is what we've discussed, Andy, on previous shows, that that's not what they call Barnum general statements, where you feel shy in the front company of strangers, or you're you feel confident on certain days than others, or whatever. Very generalized statements. This was specific stuff, And I remember telling a guy that I worked with at the time, I said, oh, this guy's fantastic. And I sort of went into some of the stuff. He goes, it's all fake. I said, well, how does he do it then? He goes, I don't know, but it's all fake. He's going to dismiss it. He hasn't looked into it. And this is what we found with skeptics. They just dismiss it. They won't actually look into it or say, well, look, let's be open-minded at least. Let's go along to one of these things and see what works and what isn't. Now, unfortunately, when you go and do research on mediums, you find a lot that are rubbish, absolutely rubbish. So if you're a skeptic and you saw a rubbish one, you'd write off the whole lot of them. But because I'm persistent and I've had experiences myself, and so's Andy, is that you persist in these things. You keep going. And occasionally you do come across some real cream of the crop mediums. Unfortunately, they're very rare, these really bang on accurate mediums. But when they're there and they give a reading, it's absolutely amazing. And I think when I was interviewed by Paul, I gave the account of being interviewed by Ross Bartlett, who did some really wonderful mediumship on me. So I was privileged to have that as well. So life after death for me is a fact. It's not just a theory. For me, it's a fact. And you would agree with that, Andy, as well, wouldn't you?
Yeah, and no GDPR back then. You know, you could give away addresses and telephone numbers.
Oh,
within
yeah.
a public audit session with no problems with that.
That's right. Yeah, give out a phone number. I mean, I've actually seen two mediums that work together, and they'll go around doing the reading, and they go up to someone. They said, "Oh, right. By the way, your PIN number for your debit is," and they said, "We're going to give you the numbers, but we're not going to give it in the right order. But you'll recognise the numbers."
Yeah.
And so the guy would go 7-1, and the other would go 3-4 or something like that. The lady would go, "Oh yeah, that is," you know. So they had this kind of. Somehow, I mean, you know, you could probably get Darren Brown saying, "Oh, it's a trick," and they do it like this or something. I don't know, but it looked quite impressive to do anyway. But
I know what the skeptics would say, although there is one flaw in how this could work. So the skeptics could say, with the sports car, maybe there was somebody in the car park waiting to see somebody park that was going to go to the show, and kind of wrote it down and then gave it to them beforehand. So that's one possibility. But then, how would you get the coat? How would you get the information with the coat? So the only way of doing that would be if the person who had the coat change came with somebody, they'd have to get that information off that somebody. But then, of course, that somebody would probably tell the person, the producers of the show came to me and they asked me blah blah blah. So there's that flaw. What was the other one you talked about? Oh, the PIN number. A skeptic probably might say, well, maybe somebody was being observed using a PIN number to buy a drink at the bar or something. Clocks it and then kind of gave the information. So I know how skeptics think because I run up against skeptics, and this is the kind of arguments that they have. But
yeah, I can see that, but when I was there, I know that those weren't the cases. That's the thing, you know.
Yeah.
So when do you first realise that you both have like psychic abilities? When did it happen? What you know, was the strongest things that you felt when you was growing up?
When I used to go grave digging. No. Well, as I mentioned to you, Paul, in my interview with you, I never thought I had anything. I really did not think I had anything. I just had an interest in the whole thing.
Yeah.
And it was only because I used to go for readings at the College of Psychic Studies or the Spiritualist Association of Great Britain that the mediums there would say, "Oh, by the way, you can do this." And I thought, "What, me? No way." So when an opportunity came up to join a psychic developing circle, I said, "Well, I'll give it a go. If there's something I've got, maybe this is the time to try and find out." So I joined a psychic circle, and after about 3 or 4 sessions, I decided that there must be something to it because I'm picking up information that I couldn't have possibly known otherwise. You know, I started to hear voices in my head. It sounds crazy, but literally voices, telepathic voices. And then I started to learn that I was getting pictures as well. A lot of it is learning what you perhaps previously ignored, because with clairvoyance and clairaudience and stuff, you might have heard a voice and just thought, "Oh, that's me." Or you might get a picture in the head and think, "Oh, that's me." But that's you got to recognize these subtle signs, and it's a shifting of your awareness, and you know, mediums have to open up and kind of shift their awareness. They almost have to go into a daydream, which is quite a tricky thing. If you're on stage presenting and talking to people, you got to try and hold the daydream, but it also at the same time be coherent to the people around you, and that's sort of balancing act. Like it's like walking on a tightrope. You know, which side are you going to fall on, sort of thing. It's quite a tricky thing, but you have to do that publicly all the time, though, don't you, Andy, with that sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, my first experiences was literally in my cot. So I was about kind of 1 or 2 years old. And I remember it really, really vividly. So it was at the old house. It was upstairs in a cot in a certain position. There was a light on the landing coming in. And I just heard this voice right next to me, very deep male voice saying, "Hello, what's your name?" And it's kind of like it did it a few times to kind of try and gauge your reaction. It's like, "Hello, what's your name?" I now know that it was spirit testing me to see if I was ready to work. At that point, I was kind of freaked out. Even though I was very, very young, I knew that shouldn't be happening because there was no one else in the room, no one human anyway. And so I just kind of like went under the covers. I just remember thinking I just wanted to go away, which it did. It respected that, which is why I know it was like a positive spirit, because a negative one would kind of like up the ante and make it worse, but positive one kind of backed off. So I think it was my guides seeing, "Andy, are you ready to work?" They obviously realised I wasn't ready. If I'd sat up and had a conversation, I'd probably turn into the boy from Sixth Sense. I'd probably start getting all sorts of waifs and strays coming in, but I didn't. I blocked it down. And then roll on a couple of years, actually a few years, about 5 years old at school. I had this dream. It was the first year. It was the class one. This dream that I was sent to the library for being naughty. That I thought I wasn't particularly naughty, but sent to the library for being naughty. Was working there, and I had this dream that this blonde-haired girl appeared with a row of kind of green jugs, water jugs, cups actually, and a water jug stacked up. Came up to me, had a conversation. She said, have you been naughty? I said, no. And she kind of laughed and went off. 2 weeks later, this happened to the T. So I was sent to the library for being naughty. There's the girl with the blonde hair, with the cups all stacked up and the water jug came up to me. And it was like, as this was happening, I was just kind of like, it's kind of deja vu overload. I said, what the hell is going on? I suspect it was to get me to question reality, to kind of like prove to me that there's something beyond what we think is the physicality of, well, everything really. Free will, cause and effect. I mean, even though I was 5 years old, it would spur me on to thinking, what is real? How do we define reality? How do we define what the future is if it hasn't happened yet? But how can we be shown it, kind of thing? So then kind of the years went on, and I didn't really have any kind of like spooky things going on. So I didn't turn into the kid from Sixth Sense, which I'm quite happy about. I don't want to see that kind of weird shit. I've always had an interesting kind of like the paranormal. My favourite show was Strange But True with Michael Aspel. I used to love that show. It was only on for like half an hour every Friday night. Absolutely loved that, and all these kind of like crazy stories, and people having like time slips and going into chapels and seeing kind of like ornate paintings that they then find out weren't there, but were there kind of centuries ago. All that kind of thing. Love all that. Ended up doing kind of like ghost hunts and things just on a personal basis with a friend of mine. Went to Borley Rectory. I don't know if you've been there, Paul. Very strange.
No.
Yeah. The locals don't like people. We don't like strangers. So they actually called the police, and the police came, and they kind of knew what we were doing, because at that point we were parked up, so we weren't in the church. We'd had a walk around the church, but we were parked up, and they said, what are you doing here? And we just said, oh, we're just looking for the little chef. And they kind of like smiled and then went their own way. And we did actually go to a little chef, but yeah, just things like that. And I think what got me into the psychic was I had a cat that went missing in around about 2000. I went to see a psychic, very good psychic in Epping, and she told me loads of things that came through, loads of things that kind of like were true in my life. Again, as Neil says, it wasn't Barnum statements, it was quite specific stuff. And yeah, I think what it was, I eventually ended up going to a spiritualist. It was a spiritualist medium, but it was in a theatre setting, so it wasn't actually a spiritualist church. And he said, if you think that you're psychic or want to learn anything psychic, then go and develop yourself at a development circle, spiritualist one. So off I toddle home. Out comes the yellow pages. Back then, the yellow pages. Just looked up spiritualist church. There's one in Cheshunt, one in Hoddesdon. Toddled off to those, sat in circle, and I found that as I was kind of like doing it, I was really enjoying it, and B, I seemed to be going at a fairly consistent trajectory. So you'd have like some older ladies talking about, obviously, a bed of roses, but I'm getting like, I've got Henry and he's in spirit and he died from a heart attack kind of thing. And so yeah, that kind of like escalated from there. Ended up doing my own psychic readings, private one-to-ones. Ended up doing psychic fairs for another organizer, just around pubs and things like that. And I thought it got to the point where I thought, not only can I do this, but I can probably do this better, because my background is in kind of graphic design and marketing and that kind of thing. And on the psychic scene, the organizers don't know what they're doing with graphics, and unless they actually pay a company to do it, they're usually quite hideous graphic side. And I thought I could do a much better job, improve the banners, bigger banners, more legible. And so yeah, that's how kind of like tuned in events, which is my little psychic events side, took off. And then that kind of morphed into the Paranormal Peep show. Met Neil, I think it was like a psychic development thing with
workshop. That's
it.
right.
Yeah,
on a Saturday I think it was.
That's it. We swapped voices and stayed in contact.
Yeah. I think we wasn't getting much in our readings, so we just started to do Yogi Bear and
Michael Caine do it.
Yeah, that's right, Mark.
I've got your nan coming through, and she's not a very nice lady, so I'm going to tell you to piss off.
Okay, boo boo. Yeah. So, have you had any readings, Paul? Any kind of mediumistic readings with anybody?
Yeah, I've seen. I don't know if you heard of him. He's in Derby, Wayne Anthony.
No, haven't. No.
And yeah, it was brilliant. Basically, I was in my 20s, and I was it was my mum wasn't very well at the time, and it was so I was thinking, like, I really wanted just to see what he would tell me. So I came down to see him with a friend, and I sat in a room with him, and it was like a darkened room. He looked very strange. I can't describe how he looked. He just presented himself very weird, but he was spot on. He was brilliant. He basically said, "Your mum's ill at the moment." I said, "Yes," and he told me what the actual illness was. Spot on. And then that was it. And he said also about the connection of Russia as well. Eventually, yeah. So he was bang on the money. He was really good.
Now, would you describe that as a psychic reading? Because they weren't. Was he bringing anyone back from the afterlife? Maybe.
I don't know I don't know how he does it. He didn't have any tarot cards or anything like that. He just sat in a darkened room and able to like channel me and see my future and my mum. The reason why I came here, I didn't explain why I was there. It's just first sentence was really, "Your mum's ill, and I know what it is, and she's going to be fine."
Wow.
And that's what I wanted.
Yeah, but you got your money's worth. Have you ever gone back to see anyone since then, or have you just kind of left it?
After that, no, never needed to really since then. Really, that was my main issue was my mum at the time, and yeah, so never needed to afterwards. Really.
Yeah, and you never seen any ghosts or anything like that?
No, unfortunately, no.
What about Johnny? Has he seen anything strange?
Not as far as I'm aware, not in ghost-wise, no. I think he just has a very much awareness of the bigger picture of the ruling elite, and I think 9/11 was the one that woke him up more about it all, and JFK assassination, and just things like that. Really, I think these the two major ones. That's, if you learn about it all, that you can learn there's definitely holes in the story. And a lot of deaths.
Yeah. How do you recall 9/11, the day it happened? What was what was you doing, and how did you find out about it?
I was in the job center. I was working in the job center, and there's the code. I think it made it like code red or something in our job center, because I think they thought, "Oh my goodness, we're on a major attack in America, so Britain's next," and so we had to like watch everything. People coming in. Is going to be anyone with a bomb strapped to them or whatever. So that was it. So I watched it on. I think did we watch it on laptop or something like that? Or no, I think I just came home and watched it, because we wasn't really allowed to watch anything on laptops or anything like that, or computers. So yeah, I just came home and then I watched it on the news really. But
and at the time you kind of went along with the scenario that it was terrorists and planes hitting the World Trade Centers and everything like that, and then sometime later you started to think, hang on, this isn't quite right. What was that point?
I just thought eventually the story wasn't hitting me very well, and I thought that how can people that had a few lessons on a normal plane be able to fly a Boeing, whatever they were, and also fly it so well to actually hit the two buildings, and also then how can they fly into a Pentagon building, which is highly secure, and able to fly so low and so fast. I'm thinking eventually those things will started to hit my my thoughts about it. What about yourselves?
For myself, I was working for a broadcasting company, a satellite TV broadcasting company, and so I was working night shifts the week that it happened. So I on the day before, this is the weird thing, is that we'd not long moved to this house, and I'd woken up about 1 o'clock in the afternoon after doing a night shift, and there's no one in the house. So I thought, oh, well, I might as well unpack some boxes, whilst I'm awake. So I started to unpack some boxes, and there was like loads of photo albums in these boxes. I just took one of the photo albums out and I had a look, and it was a picture of me from 1987, and I was on top of the Empire State Building with my brother. But behind us, you could see the Twin Towers. And when I looked, I thought, oh, So those twin towers, they look a lot closer. Actually, in the photograph from memory, I thought they were really far away. So I thought, oh, if I ever go to America and to New York, I'd love to go up the Twin Towers next time, you see. So I just shut the album and then put it on the shelf. And then next day was 9/11.
Wow.
So it's weird that I kind of thought about going up the Twin Towers the day before. And then suddenly 9/11 happened. And of course, I was asleep again when it was happening because I'd done a night shift. I'd gone back in on the nights and worked from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. Come back home, had a sleep, slept till about 1, 2 o'clock or something. My then wife said, there's something on the radio about a plane hitting the World Trade Center. I went, oh, right. So we switched on the radio. But listen, I said, well, hang on, it might be on the TV as well. You know, I didn't know how big a story it was. I thought it was like a random plane just hitting it accidentally. That was my initial thoughts. So we switched on the telly, and there it was on BBC One or something. I thought, oh my God, you know. And then suddenly, whilst I was watching it, the next plane came in and hit it. I thought, bloody hell, you know, this plane's just hit the World Trade Center. So we definitely knew it, something was up. And then, of course, I had to go to work that night as well, back to the broadcasting centre. It was a Scandinavian broadcaster working in London, broadcasting back to Scandinavia. And people couldn't understand it. Well, hang on, if you're Scandinavian, why aren't you working from Scandinavia? But it was some law at the time they had in Scandinavia that a satellite broadcaster could not be based in the Scandinavian countries. So they got around it by moving their operation to London and then broadcasting back to Scandinavia by satellite. And it broke the rules as such, or sidelined the rules. So that's how this company operated. And so, of course, when I got back into work on all the channels that we ran, which is about 14 or 15 at the time, every single channel was a feed from Fox News of the Twin Towers, basically on fire, and the news feed rolling over, because all the main programs that we had were just stopped. All the schedules we had were just forgotten about. And we just took feeds for a whole week of Fox News on all those channels. And gradually we started to resume normal programming. So, but yeah, it was maybe, I mean, one of the things I would be talking to the guy who was a Muslim on the night shift, and he was laughing his head off saying, oh, this is great. This is great. You know, the Twin Towers have come down and things like that, you know, down with America. And I thought, that's not good. So, he wasn't too popular, but we you know, I kind of got on all right with him. But he said, you know, we was watching the news that they said, oh, one of the news reporters allegedly found a passport in the rubble. Oh, well, look, it's a passport of a terrorist. Look, you know, there we go. That proves it, you know. And we thought, well, that's a bit weird. Out of all the bloody rubbish you pick up there, how come you're allowed in the epicenter of it to pick up a bloody passport that hasn't burned, you know, out of everything?
And I remember thinking, well, you know, we'll know more about it because they'll find the black boxes, because the black boxes have got transponders so you can find them. Never found the black boxes. Why not?
Yeah.
Was the transponders turned off or something? Supposedly, but you should have been able to find the black boxes in amongst the rubble.
And they're supposed to be crash proof. That's the whole point of them. They're supposed to be completely indestructible.
Yeah.
But, you know.
It's a bit like the NASA data tapes, isn't it? No, we can't find them because that might reveal the truth.
Yeah.
Also, I was quite surprised how quickly they came up with a name of who they think did it. Oh, Osama bin Laden. I was thinking, that's a bit quick. And if you can come up with that name that quickly, why couldn't you have stopped it in the first place if you knew that that's what he was going to do?
Yeah.
And then there was the whole kind of Saddam Hussein thing, and I was thinking, okay, even if he did have weapons of mass destruction, let's have the hypothetical that he did. What the hell has that got to do with 9/11 anyway? What the hell has 9/11 got to do with Saddam Hussein?
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, why go over there and go there, you know, first instead of Afghanistan? Really, I didn't understand that either.
Yeah. Well, it's a whole furore. What whilst you're kind of killing one country, let's just, whilst we got the money in the bank, let's go and kill the other one as much as we can and grab what we can. So it was an excuse to plunder. It's pirating in the 21st century sort of thing. That's what it turned out to be. But of course, on the other side of the coin now, so sort of new things have come to light, and one of them is the idea of Where Did the Towers Go book by Dr Judy Wood, who has worked out structurally how all these towers fell, and the only thing that she has come up with is some sort of directed energy weapon that has been aimed at these towers in some way, and that's what caused them to not dematerial, turn them to dust. Dustification,
Mhm.
I think, is the term that she used. And there's actually pictures you can see of like one of the transmitter towers. It's actually on the book, and you can see videos of it where you got the tower like this, and then in the next sequence it's like almost turning to dust. The next minute it's just dust. Now, obviously, if that's falling because it's like falling to the ground, that should fall down as a complete unit and crash.
Yeah,
But no, it was turning to dust in the sky.
yeah. And there's also things like there's cars and vehicles found where half of them are completely rusty and completely burnt out, and the other half the paintwork is perfect.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Absolutely.
yeah, and the tires are intact, not melted or anything.
Yeah.
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
And some of them have been like turned over, like flipped over somehow.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah. Now
Mhm.
that's the Hutchison effect she was referring
That's right.
to, which is this guy who's up in Canada, and I forget his name, Hutchinson.
Yeah, John Hutchinson.
John Hutchinson, yeah, and he's a kind of eccentric kind of inventor, a bit like if you think of Doc, whatever his name is from Back to the Future, he's a bit
Doc
like
Brown.
that. Yeah, Doc Brown out of Back to the Future. He's a bit like that. It doesn't look like it, but he's that kind of guy, always inventing stuff. And he's tinkering with all sorts of electronics in his house and things. And he's done stuff with literally melting stuff with ray beams and all sorts of technical stuff. And so it was something like that he's tinkered with on a localized level, which what they possibly used in the 9/11 thing. So all the bombs in the basement stuff and all the detonate controlled demolition is another argument that's been put out there, so that they don't want you to look at this Hutchinson effect ray weapon or whatever it is. They just want you to say, yeah, okay, if you think it's a conspiracy, let's just focus on the bombs in the basement or the demolition, whatever, but don't look at this book here. Don't look at Dr. Judy Wood. Look at the demolition side of things, because they don't want you to know about this technology, which might have been back engineered, I only say might, speculatively, might have been back engineered from recovered sources or shared technology with aliens. I don't know. That's speculation. But how did they get that technology in the first place? Did John Hutchinson sell it to them secretly, or are they all kind of been? I know that he was visited by members of the CIA or someone in the military or something like that on a number of times, and maybe they've kind of copied his stuff over the years and decided to develop themselves, or he's just stumbled on it accidentally. But certainly they've obviously got the kit and the money to make these things, possibly from space, and beam down the beam from space. Because in the book that I've got, if you've got the Where Did the Towers Go book, it shows these circular holes in buildings that are near where the World Trade Center is, almost as if someone's drilled with a massive 50-foot wide drill into these buildings from above. There's circular holes, like golf ball holes, carved into these buildings. Where did they come from? If these are two planes hitting them, you won't get circular holes, from in buildings. It's almost as if this beam weapon was trying to aim at the World Trade Centers from space and kept missing, and just kept firing into these other buildings accidentally till they got the right one.
Yeah,
that's what it looks like.
And you guys probably saw Building 7, and even then thought that looks very much like a controlled demolition.
Like that. Building 7, that was an interesting one, because the BBC has reported that it already fell, and then while she's reporting it, Building 7's fallen, you could see it actually collapsing behind her. That was a bit of a giveaway, wasn't it?
Yeah.
God, so many rabbit holes. I mean, with this, there's so many rabbit holes about everything. And do you know what? It's not stopped. So even we're up to bloody coronavirus in 2020, and where is this virus? Why are these empty hospital wards being reported? Why are doctors and nurses doing TikTok videos when we're told they're exhausted treating dying patients?
It doesn't make sense, does it? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, because there's lots of people now in various hospitals that haven't had operations they should have, and they're empty of patients that would normally be admitted, because they're saying, sorry, you can't come to hospital because of coronavirus. I mean, I went to accident emergency with my girlfriend's son about 4 months ago in the middle of lockdown, and we went there. It was the hospital was quiet, and we were allowed to be seen, but we couldn't actually go in the hospital ourselves. He was allowed in and was treated. We had to stay outside. They were bringing various people in for like heart attacks and things like that, but the whole hospital generally had a very quiet feel about the whole thing. Pretty much a ghost town almost.
This is widely reported. I know people who have relatives and friends who work in our local hospitals, and they've been empty for weeks. Apparently, Lister Hospital in Stevenage, around about March time, had about 100 COVID cases. That went down to about 5 COVID cases, kind of like April time, and since then it's been empty, essentially, more or less.
Yeah, and there was supposedly 2 COVID cases at Paul Hospital in Dorset about 3 or 4 months ago when I went there again for my girlfriend, and I just happened to say, "Oh, how many COVID patients you got here?" Then she goes, 2. Oh, really?
So you've got to ask when they're standing up in front of the BBC cameras and they're talking about these hundreds of deaths per day. Well, where the bloody hell are these hundreds of deaths per day? And another thing I want to know is what's happening to the normal, regular flu cases? Has that suddenly disappeared? Are there nobody out there with normal seasonal flu, or is it the case that normal seasonal flu has been diagnosed as COVID?
That's got the summer off. It's been given the summer holidays off, so it's gone on holiday. It'll be back in the autumn.
Do you know globally how many people, on average, die of normal flu globally every year?
Is it a couple of million or something?
650,000 roughly.
That's all, really. That's.
I mean, it is fairly low globally, but if you think about it, take Britain. We had the people, the experts, come on TV and tell us about these hundreds of cases per day. Well, imagine if they'd done that during seasonal flu and told us about how many cases per day of seasonal flu. It'd probably be fairly similar, I'd imagine.
That's right. That's right. What's your thoughts on it, Paul?
Yeah, I think the wording of it is very clever as well. Died with COVID, died from COVID.
Having tested positive from COVID.
Yeah, I think they're playing it very, very easily with he died with a heart attack, but he's found to have COVID, so let's put it down as COVID. I think it's terrible, really. I think they're just trying to bump up the figures. But why do they want to do it? What's your thoughts about the actual bigger picture of it? Do you think they want to do it for what, money gain, or?
I have a theory on this.
Go on then.
I think this is. I'm going to need my tinfoil hat. I wish I had a tinfoil hat because I'd put it on at this point. I think it's because we're in a war between light and dark. I think that the darkness manifests itself in humanity in various ways, whether it's the Spanish Inquisition or whether it's Nazism or whether it's communism. Whatever way it will try and weasel its way into humanity to destroy humanity, it will do so. And what I think is that communism is trying to take over the world through this kind of this woke progressivism, this far leftism. And I think that the person that stands in the way is Trump. Trump gets a lot of bad press. I don't think he's on the dark side. I think he's on the light side. And I think they've gone through a tick list of different ways to try and get rid of him. So we've ticked off Russian collusion. That came to nothing. We've ticked off what other things have they tried to get him with? But they've ticked off this, that, and the other. Oh yeah, the sexual assault allegation with this porn star or something. That came to nothing. So they're going through all of this. So it's coming up to the elections, and they're like, we really, really need to get rid of him. What can we do? And I think they're working in collusion with the Chinese government. And I think the best way of getting rid of Trump would be to collapse the economy. How are we going to collapse the economy? This is kind of like where I'm thinking. Now, it could be right or could be wrong, but a pandemic would be a fantastic way to collapse the economy. And in terms of evidence with this, I don't know if you're aware of it, but there was a Chinese army lieutenant that was arrested in America for working for the Chinese government, and they were arrested within the bioweapons laboratories at a university in America. And there was an American lecturer that was also working on vials of bioweapons, who was arrested sneaking out these vials of bioweapons to China. It just so happens where this Chinese virus came from was in Wuhan, next to 2 biological weapons facilities.
So coincidence. Yeah,
this is it. There's no specific proof, but if you put in the jigsaw puzzle, I don't think it was meant to be released in China. I suspect there was like shenanigans going on between this university and this Chinese lieutenant and the Wuhan. laboratories. I think there's a bit of skullduggery going on there, and I suspect it was meant to be released in America to collapse the American economy, because it actually serves a lot of agendas. It serves not only the crashing of the economy to oust Trump and bring in their version of communism, which is the Democrat Party, but it's also things like the microchip agenda, the vaccine agenda, the global culling agenda, the police state agenda. So we now got markets, food markets in Australia with police in riot gear looking like stormtroopers in Australia, of all places. And I think that's kind of like where this was meant to be going. And interestingly, you notice that the pandemic, although it's quite bad, or in the mainstream media, it's perceived as being quite bad. Trump is still in power, and he's still got quite a backing. His popularity is still there, and he's still in power. So how else can we get him? Well, let's have civil unrest. Enter BLM, or as I like to call them, burn, loot, murder. So, and I think I think the liberal left are utterly insane. And I think that they're actually communist. I don't think they're liberal. I think they are on the left, but they're far left, and they're communist. I think they want to take over the world. They're doing it through civil unrest in America at the moment. The Democrat Party are like that with the Chinese government. So there's all this Russian collusion thing is blown out of the water so far as the Democrat Party shaking hands with the Chinese communists, and the communists that are backing the Democrat Party. If Biden gets in, if Gropey Biden gets in, I think America is foobar from that moment on. Trump is a buffoon, but I think he's of the light, and I think he has good intentions. He may not articulate them in quite the most coherent way or the most intelligent way, but I think if Biden gets in, America is absolutely screwed.
Why can't they just assassinate him? That would be one question.
Apparently they've tried. They've tried. According to Simon Parks, there's been about 14 attempts. One of them has been. Do you remember there was a guy that ran a car into the Trump? There was a Trump rally with Trump attending, and there's a guy that tried to hit him with the car. So there was that. I don't remember
that, but yeah.
There was a. Do you remember a shooting outside the White House a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah, they shot him back or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's that. Apparently there's a poisoning. So they went after, I think it was Ivanka Trump. There was a poisoning where she got poisoned, but it was also meant for him as well. She obviously didn't die from it, but I think she became quite ill from it. So far as I'm aware, there's been quite a few assassination attempts. But assassination attempts aren't always guaranteed to work. I mean, Hitler had something like 40 assassination attempts on him. The most famous being the Stauffenberg case, the von Stauffenberg case. I wonder how world history would be, because von Stauffenberg, he had a briefcase and he had like an explosive, but he had two explosives, and you pinch it and acid drips, and eventually when the acid drips, the wire pings and it blows up. Now, he only managed to get one of these explosives going, put it in the briefcase, blew up the table leg of the oak table, and Hitler survived. If he'd managed to clip two of the explosives, I wonder if world history would be completely different, because Hitler might have been killed and the world might have been a completely different place. But how this all links in with it, I don't think the Nazi Party ever went away. I think they just changed locations and they regrouped. So we've got people like von Braun, who was acquisitioned by the Americans to work with NASA. We've got various people working with IG Farben and some of the big pharmaceutical companies that were ex-Nazis. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm not massively happy about ex-Nazis joining pharmaceutical companies and big agro businesses and computer.
No, considering their CVs operating on people in Auschwitz and things like that,
Yeah,
previous medical experience, crikey. And of course, a load of Nazis presumably went down to Antarctica with their secret bases and UFOs and collusion with the aliens and stuff down there. That's where we're going tinfoil as well. But we have discussed that previously.
Bell. Yeah, you've got the Die Glocke, the Nazi bell. No one knows exactly what it's about, but it's this big concrete structure that looks like a water tower. But there was this theory that the Nazis were trying to develop either some new weapon or new kind of UFO technology with this big revolving energetic thing. God knows what they're up to.
Yes, yeah, it just gets stranger and stranger. The more you dig, the more bizarre stories you come up with.
It's like Hitler. I mean, I don't think he actually died in the bunker. I think he escaped. Because I heard like lots of stories like he was living in Argentina. And what's your thoughts?
Film, The Boys from Brazil, which was based upon Nazi hunters, ended up in South America, and they headed out to Brazil, and that's where all these Nazis are hiding now. But the skull of Hitler was never proven to be his. Apparently,
I think it was female, wasn't it?
Yeah, I don't know the details, but I believe that the skull was not supposedly Hitler's at the end of the day. It was burned. They couldn't really recognize it. It was supposed they thought it was Hitler, but not necessarily, if it's female, it could have been his girlfriend, Eva von Braun, I think.
Yeah.
So is it Eva von Braun? Am I confusing names?
Eva Braun.
Eva Braun.
Yeah.
Okay, nothing to do with von Braun, who did the Saturn V rocket.
That was Werner von Braun.
Yeah, it might have been his sister.
This is Jesse, by the way. This is why I had to disappear. My little funny enough, talking about von Braun, I think it was von Braun on his deathbed that said the media reported threats against humanity would be, first of all, the Soviet Union. Secondly, it would be kind of like rogue terrorist states. Then he said, I think it was asteroids. And then I think he said after that it would be the aliens.
All fake, of course.
You're all fake, all kind of purported in the media.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't mention the coronavirus then. Maybe
No,
I
don't think so. But certainly in the news, I don't know if you've seen it, but they're talking about the asteroids flying past, the kind of the close hits. Yeah, so we've got that.
But that's not really, it's not really like big news, is it, in the sense of potential, oh my God, we got to have a government pamphlet how to duck asteroids and, hide under a table or paint yourself white to deflect the blast or something,
Yeah, you're right.
They're just like, oh, that's a near miss. It was 250 million miles away, so it just flew past us and things like that, But so, yeah, that was that. I forget the lady. She worked with him. She was an assistant. And I forget her name. But yeah, I don't know how true that is. I haven't seen anything. There's parts of it that, rogue nations and rogue terrorism and stuff like that. It could be true.
Well, we've had that. Yeah, look at Osama bin Laden and, the Taliban and ISIS and the whole Syria situation. So there's your rogue nations.
It could be that once that story got out, though, they've had to change their ploy a little bit because they think, oh, crikey, that video of, Werner's got out now. We're going to have to change our plans. The cat's out the bag. So we're going to have to do coronavirus instead of something, plan B or something like that. Yes, yeah. Definitely the cat was out the bag, yeah. So what have you got lined up for the remainder of the year on Unite Planet, Paul? Any potential guests that you got lined up?
To be honest with you, we don't really plan that far in advance. We just, people do write in and say, we'd like to be interviewed. And but so far, we don't have any interviews lined up. No, not at all. I think we'd like to do conferences, but with the coronavirus, we had to put that on hold as well.
Yeah, so everyone's been pretty much stuffed as doing anything. I was going to be doing a talk in the earlier part of this year, couldn't go ahead. And I know that there's going to be this Lapis conference up in the northwest of probably around Blackpool area, I think, which something might have been there to replace the Probe conference. Now that's failed to go ahead. I actually suggested on Facebook that I said, but you could probably get round it because companies are still allowed to operate. So I said you could call yourself a charitable company, the Lapis Charitable Company, and you're having a big meeting, and all the people that come through the door are your freelance employers for the day. They'll pay a $5 on the door to be a freelance employer. They sign a little book or guest book or whatever, and then you have your big meeting, and that's what it's about. So that's how you can get around it. That's how you could get around it. Is call yourself a company. Or you have loads of little companies all meeting there. 6 people in each company, all within a few feet of each other, but they're actually there for the same thing. You got to think of ways to come back on this.
Exactly. Think outside the box.
Yeah, do you think that was a deliberate ploy by the government so that you can't do these protests that people have been doing in like Trafalgar Square and things like that?
I think so. Yeah,
but it seems pretty clear. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. But you can do like say fox hunting, but you can't do with the not riots, demonstrations.
Absolutely.
But I don't think it's going to work anyway. These protests or signing petitions for this, and they won't work, unfortunately. As much as I like them to work, I don't think it would work.
I think the unfortunate thing is, and the slightly depressing and pessimistic thing is, the only thing that would work would be a mass consciousness awakening of people saying no, as David Icke basically points out.
Yeah,
enough people to say no, but unfortunately, looking at history, most people just go along to get along. Most people would just put the hand in the air to salute Hitler. They'll just raise the fist to salute Mao, and they'll just go along with it, and that's kind of depressing. The hive mind of reality, I don't really have much kind of hope for, really. I just don't.
Yeah,
So
yeah. There are people that are raising their consciousness and trying to sort of point out things, but there still are in the minority, which hopefully people watching this show might get a few ideas and think things through for themselves, and don't take our word for it. Examine the evidence for what you believe to be true, and go with it, and be open-minded about these things. If you feel that it's all legit, then it's all legit. But if you feel that there's something untoward, then investigate it or research it or look into it. But certainly, I'm very suspicious of the whole thing. It's all a bit too convenient. And like I remember Andy saying at the very beginning of the year, you saw these videos of people literally dropping dead in the streets in China from coronavirus.
Where is that now?
Yeah,
where is that in any country? Where is it? If it's the same virus, if it is the same Wuhan Chinese virus where people were dropping dead in China, where are they dropping dead in the West?
Yeah, it's all a lot of woo.
It's all a lot of woo.
And on that note, I think we have to say it's the end of the Paranormal Peep show in conjunction with Unite Planet and Paul Northridge as our guest. And we're your guest as well. So...
Exactly. Thank you very much. It's been brilliant.
Okay, well, thank you for joining us, and we're very glad to join you from Andy and myself. So on that note, ladies and gents, we'll say thank you very much for joining us on the Paranormal Peep show and Unite Planet. Stay safe, and we'll see you next month.
And remember, if you're American, vote Trump.
Good night. Good night.
Good night.